What you do reveals who you are. And the last couple weeks have certainly reminded us of this truth. The many examples of the meaning and the ministry of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. give testimony to someone who knew deeply this truth. But more than walking your talk, your actions reveal your true identity, who you are at your core. The gospel writers got this truth. And to see this, it's helpful this morning to place the four gospel writers together, side by side, to compare their understanding of who Jesus really was. And to discover that when we look at Jesus' first public act of ministry in each of these Gospels, we can ask that, well then, according to that act, what does this Gospel writer say about Jesus' identity? Quick examples. For Matthew, the first act was the Sermon on the Mount. So for Matthew, Jesus was a great teacher. For Luke, Jesus gave that very well-received sermon in his hometown until the people started realizing who he was actually referring to when he talked about the poor and the oppressed. For John, the first act was the wedding at Cana and the gallons and gallons of wine. For John, Jesus brought abundance, abundant life. And finally, our story today from Mark. We have an exorcism, and of a member of the synagogue, no less, which tells us that, yes, even in a house of God, spiritual sickness can eat away at children of God. So what does an exorcism reveal about Jesus? What does it mean that for Mark, Jesus is best remembered as Jesus the exorcist and not Jesus the teacher or the shepherd or the king? Well, we do well then to remember how Mark starts his gospel in the wilderness with the heavens ripping apart. Who is Jesus? For Mark, Jesus is a boundary breaker, which this exorcism confirms exponentially. Jesus breaks every boundary, and he reveals a boundary-breaking God. And we will see this all over Mark's gospel. Each and every boundary that we try to put in place, every boundary that we might think we have in place, even the boundaries that we see as impenetrable, God bursts through. Think of our boundaries, political boundaries. Can God be a Democrat? Or can God have Democratic ideas? Or can God have Republican ideas? Social boundaries. Who is in? Who's out? Religious boundaries. Who's got the truth? Ethical boundaries. Is homosexuality a sin? Racial, gender boundaries, sexual boundaries, cosmic boundaries. Even if we're honest, the final boundary that we persist in thinking is beyond God's ability to shatter, death itself. All of these boundaries, Mark shows, God burst through, and Jesus, the exorcist, seems the only logical first ministry for Mark. Not a sermon, not a miracle, not even a healing. But Jesus steps into the realm of opposing supremacies, the world of other spirits, the potent power of possession, and he says, God is here. God is here, breaking through the barrier that holds at bay the unclean, the evil in the universe, the places and spaces where it seems that God could never be. The very presence of the opposite of God. God is here. Yes, God is here. There's no place that God is not. But what does this good news really mean? Mark isn't just making this stuff up. He knows the book of Isaiah. And what is the good news? What's the gospel in Isaiah? The people hear of good tidings, the one who brings good news. And the one who brings good news says, your God reigns. Your God is here, and this is good news. This is the meaning of the heavens being ripped apart. This is the meaning of a suffering Messiah, not a Messiah coming to conquer Rome. This is what it means for a death on a cross and an empty tomb. When everything looks like God is absent, God is present. Your God is here. Okay, so you may be thinking, yeah, that sounds good. But I don't believe it. Not really. Actually, if I was honest with you, that's a load of garbage, Pastor. As far as I can tell, God is nowhere to be seen. And you have every reason to think that doubt, and even to voice your disbelief. In fact, your doubt and disbelief makes sense. So what would I say in response to that? Wait, your God is here. I know it doesn't look like it, but it's true. Really, it's really true, really, really. When I know your response could be, like we said as kids, liar, liar, pants on fire. What can I say to convince you that Mark knew what he was talking about when you might look away and believe otherwise? Why should you listen to a prophet like me? Because I will tell you the truth. I will hold up the light and always, always seek to tell you the truth. Because that's what prophets do. And I will tell you my truth that I've experienced, which is to admit to you that I know your doubts and disbelief, because they are my doubts and disbelief too. Where is God that in all that possesses me? Where is God in my sleepless nights when I wake up and the thought of my own death terrifies me? Where is God in my losses in my life, in my griefs, and in all my sorrows? Where is God when I look at the decline of Christian churches and all I see in those churches are power struggles? What do I say to myself then? Your God is here. Your God is here. Your God is even here. And maybe that's all I can say. I can voice my own disbelief. I can acknowledge my own doubts. I can respect and tend all the disappointments and despair of those around me, and still I utter the truth that I know within my very core, God is here. God is here. And I have seen that God here at Salem. In all your fears and in all your confusion and in all your despairs and doubts and worries and confusion, I have seen the Spirit blow in this place. I have seen it in the convergence of what happens in worship. When the choir sings and it touches my heart so much that I forget where I am in the service. That's happened. When a soloist has come and sung the very words of my sermon, which I thought was a total variance on the text for that particular Sunday, and she sings the same words that I preach. I've seen it in the way that you love and care for each other, and the way that you love and care for this community, and you seek to help those in need, and you be and do all the things that Jesus came to be and do. And yeah, you've got all your stuff that you deal with too, and yes, we don't always love each other. But I have seen that God is here. And that God loves you so dearly. That Spirit is blowing and preparing you for what God is calling you to next. I heard it and I see it when I listened to your past presidents speak, when we transition team gathered them together, in the common themes that bubbled up from them. I'm sure they didn't talk to each other before they came to that meeting. and shared the joys and challenges of their presidency. I've seen it in the convergence and the bubbling up of common themes that rise from you as you look ahead to where you want this place to go. God is here. My prayer for you is that each and every one of you, no matter what is going on in your life, no matter what your concerns and worries are personally or for this place or for our country or for our world, that you know in the depth of your core that God is here. And there's nothing, not even death itself, where God is not. God is here. God is here.